Once upon a time, there was a very kind king ruled in a country who cared a lot about his people. He had a daughter whose name was Rapunzel, who was a very beautiful and good-hearted. Rupenzil, like her father. When she turned 18, her hair was growing faster than other people, adding to her beauty. One day, Rupenzil suddenly disappears somewhere. The king tries hard to find her, but she is nowhere to be found. The search for her continues for several days. At the same time, the king decides to seek help from his most trusted dwarf because he knew the magic. Who lived in the forest, the king sends a messenger to call him. But he did not know that he had a hand in the disappearance of the princess. After reading the king's message, the dwarf leaves for the palace at the same time. As he reaches the palace, the king asked him to use his magic to find the Rapunzel. The dwarf pretends to find the Rapunzel with his magic, and said to King that I didn't find the Rapunzel. The king is very disappointed after hearing his answer, because he had high hopes from the dwarf. The dwarf, who was very cunning, consoles the king and gives him hope that the trace of the Rapunzel will be found. Dwarf starts staying in the palace to keep an eye on the king, so that the king doesn't find out about the Rapunzel. On the other hand, the princess is imprisoned in an old magical castle in the forest. She stands window of the tower and sees that maybe someone will help her. One day she saw soldiers looking for her. She's in front of them, but they doesn't see the magical castle. They doesn't even hear the voice of the Rapunzel. And go from there. Seeing this, Rapunzel was very disappointed, and her hope of getting out is dashed, and she starts crying. At the same time, the prince of the neighboring country, who was very brave and wise, who had performed many feats of bravery in his young age, he had a God-given power to see all magical things that no human could see. He lost his way while hunting and ended up in this forest. In the forest, he saw this fort. The light was pouring in from the window of the tower. He was surprised to see that because he did not see any door to this magical fortress. He started thinking, how can someone go upstairs without any door? He was in this thought when he heard the sound of a girl crying from the window of the tower. He called out, "Who are you, and why are you crying?" When Rapunzel heard the prince's voice, she was very happy and surprised that no one could see me, and no one hears my voice. "So who is this who has heard my voice?" He ran to the window of the tower, and she said that my name is Rapunzel. I am the daughter of the king of this country, and I have been imprisoned here for a long time. Can you set me free? The prince said that there is no door to this fort. How can I free you? Hearing this, the Rapunzel hung the top of her hair down from the window, which reached to the ground. The prince was very surprised to see such a long and beautiful braid of hair, and hung himself at the top from the support of this braid, and reached the window. Rapunzel is crying, seeing the prince, and said to free me from here. I had given up hope of being free from here. God has heard my plea and sent you to help me. The prince thinks how to get out of here. He looks around the room looking for something to help them get down from the tower. But he sees no such thing. Suddenly, he thinks of the Rapunzel's braid and asks her that you will have to pay the price of freedom with your braid. And before the Rapunzel can say anything, he cuts her braid with his sword, and tied up with the iron hook. And with the help of the braid of the hair, they both descended. The prince took her and left for the palace, when they reached palace. As the Rapunzel comes in front of the king is happy to see her and rushes towards the Rapunzel. Meanwhile, the dwarf tries to escape from the back, so the Rapunzel shouts to the soldiers to arrest the dwarf. The soldiers capture the dwarf. The king is surprised and asks the Rapunzel why the dwarf has been arrested. He helped me a lot in finding you. I was despairing that I would ever meet you. He had assured that one day she will meet, and you are arresting him? What is the secret in it? The Rapunzel said that one day the dwarf came to me and said that he wanted to marry me. I refused and told him that I will put his complaint to you, so he put me in a magical fort by magic. He used to come to this fort daily and force me to marry him, but I refused always. The king was very angry after hearing all this and ordered to keep him in jail forever. The king, who was very happy to meet his daughter, fixed his eyes on the prince and asked the Rapunzel who he is. The Rapunzel narrated the whole story to the king. The king thanked the prince profusely and asked him who he is. The prince told the king that he is the son of the king of the neighboring country. And the prince went forward and told the king that he wanted to marry the Rapunzel if he would allow it. The Rapunzel herself started to like the prince. She was blushed to hear this. And after a few days, they got married, and they lived happily ever after. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe the channel.